Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a full tank review for you of a Tier 8 premium German light tank. It is the Leichter Kpz 70k. And while a lot more people are probably going to be excited about the E77 inside the loot boxes that are coming out for the Waffenträger game mode, this vehicle changes the game with regards to how much gun depression it has, and like the tiniest kind of turret on top to be able to go with its 17 degrees of gun depression. Oh, this one is to get excited about. So, before we get stuck into the gameplay, let's see how this thing holds up with regards to its statistics. So the Kpz 70 is, as far as I'm aware, the first light tank in the game that has a hydro-pneumatic suspension. So this vehicle gets 10 degrees of natural gun depression, and then it gets an additional 7 degrees of the hydro-pneumatic suspension that we can see at the back to be able to achieve 17 degrees total over the front of the vehicle. And over the back, you can still get 15 degrees of gun depression as well. Funnily enough, we already have two premium German Tier 8 light tanks inside the game. We have the HWK-30 and we have the M4190, so there's quite a lot of competition. And immediately we notice that the Kpz 70 fumbles with regards to its damage per minute, less than 1,700. That is horrible, especially when you consider this vehicle only has 240 alpha damage. The other two tanks are literally reloading over a second and nearly 2 seconds faster than this vehicle for the same amount of alpha. Secondly, we notice the vehicle has quite poor penetration at 190 for 2024, and this vehicle gets APCR rounds, but they've only got 1,000 meters a second shell velocity, making them not very special at all compared to the 1,080 that you have on the HWK-30, which, to be fair, isn't that much better. But remember that the M4190 has AP rounds, and while their shell velocity is lower, it's going to get 3 extra degrees of normalization, meaning that the 182 standard pen that you have on the M4190 is actually way better than on the Kpz 70. However, it changes when you look at the gold rounds on this tank with 260 millimeters of heat pen, lovely, and look at the HE rounds, 105 millimeters with 320 alpha damage. So just like the HE rounds on the HWK-30 and just like the HE rounds on the M4190. In fact, these ones are slightly better by 3 millimeters. You're going to be able to pump up that alpha damage to a very reasonable level. And you've got better heat pen than the 250 that you'll have on the HWK-30 and also on the M4190, meaning that this thing's firepower, while its damage per minute isn't there, its penetration certainly is with regards to amount of ammunition. Its flexibility. Also, it can carry a good amount of ammo, like the HWK-30, so you might start to run low of one type of ammo later on, especially considering that you want to take a lot of HE shells in this tank, but you should be okay. So now onto the gun handling of this tank. It's not bad news here at all. Same aim time as the HWK-30, same gun handling, which is good. The accuracy much better than the other two tanks in this comparison, and this vehicle absolutely trashes the other two tanks with regards to its gun depression, because not only does it get 10 degrees all the way around the tank, it gets 7 degrees of gun depression over the front with its hydro-pneumatic suspension and 5 extra degrees over the back, making 17 over the front and 15 over the rear of the vehicle. Phenomenal stuff, and it allows this thing to do things that no other tank can really do at high tier inside World of Tanks. So how about the mobility of this vehicle? Well, it's not particularly good news. 60 forwards is very limited, so if you're thinking that you could be able to use this thing to blaze your way into those really funky early positions on maps like Tundra or Glacier and then use your gun depression to laugh at your opponents or even mines, yeah, it's definitely not going to work out. 60 is not fast, and there will be medium tanks, let alone light tanks, that are getting into position as quick, if not faster, than you. Its power to weight ratio, also not the best at 28, but it does get very nice ground resistances, better than the HWK-30, which makes this thing faster. Yeah, on no terrain, it doesn't actually make it faster, but on soft terrain, we can see the HWK-30 is quite limited. So if you were able to pump up that top speed with the Kpz 70 with a turbo, then maybe you could start to negate the difference because of those good ground resistances. And it has got a significantly better power to weight than the M4190, but even with that poor power to weight, the M4190 still goes at 68 kilometers an hour on soft terrain. So yeah, the mobility of the Kpz 70, it's not a disaster, but it's far from one of the strong points of the tank. So if you're thinking this tank would get the durability as well to go with all of these awesome attributes, well, you'd be wrong. This vehicle has 30 at the front and 15 at the side, and 40 on the front of the turret and 25 on the side of the turret. So just like the other two German tanks, these things are getting overmatched. However, what I would like to clarify is that this thing's 30 millimeters of upper hull armor, it's not bad at being able to bounce 90mm and sub 90mm guns because of look at that awesome upper hull. And so while you're going to get overmatched on the side by all 46mm caliber guns, if you do just angle, well, you don't even have to angle. If they do hit your upper hull, it can ricochet. However, I'd like to clarify, all 91mm caliber guns are going to be able to go through here, and HE rounds are going to obliterate your lower plate, so don't think that it's good within that regard. And if anything hits your turret, it's pretty much an overmatch. But let me clarify that unlike the visual model where you think that these like two sub guns on the side or even these viewports here might be a hitbox, it doesn't actually look like it is. And I'm not sure that that's going to be subject to change before the patch. So this is a very tiny turret. One of my favorite things to do with this vehicle, a bit like with the Comet, is to turn the turret towards the side using the tank's awesome gun depression of still 10 degrees even without the hydropneumatic suspension, and then go left and right. And I don't know about you, but that could be very imposing to be able to hit, especially if using QuickyBaby's painted calculator, which we're going to make fat, the falculator, can't really say that. Imagine now going left and right over the ridgeline. That is a hard tank to hit. And if you're exposing your hull armor or you've just got a really weak turret, the Leichter Kpz 70k is going to make fun of you, yeah? Add to this, the vehicle doesn't exactly have great hit points, but not bad at 1,150, and things are looking pretty good for this tank. And finally, the camo rating on this vehicle also trumps the other two vehicles in this comparison. However, before you get excited, remember that the HWK-30 and the M4190, they don't exactly have the best of camos for light tanks. And so if you were thinking that you were going to be up with like the LHMTV, no, you're going to be down the list with exactly the same camo as the HWK-12 and just a little bit worse than tanks like the WZ-132, which I don't think anyone could consider would be the best of scouts. So this definitely has bad camo rating, but not horrific camo rating for a light tank. But the big problem is that Wargaming have decided to give this thing horrendous view range, 380 meters. And this is the worst view range of any of the tier 8 light tanks, outside of the Lynx and the EBR-75, but those are wheeled vehicles. And so accordingly, yeah, you're forced to take coated optics in this tank rather than taking something that you might make all of the other aspects better, such as vents, to be able to just focus on the view range. And even if you do that, it doesn't even end up being that good. Crew skills wise on this vehicle, your crew from the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen will work perfectly on this tank. I'm going to take Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, Recon, Emergency, and Coordination on my commander. And for my radio operator, I'm going to be taking Situational Awareness, Communications Expert, and Jamming. For my Gunner / my loader, Brothers in Arms, Repairs, Concealment, Designated Target, Concentration, and Deadeye. And on my loader, Ammo Tuning, Intuition, very important on this tank. I'd definitely take Intuition first on this vehicle. And I'm going to be taking Safe Stowage, so I'm not getting ammo racked so much, because I get ammo racked multiple times in this vehicle very quickly. And for my driver, Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, Engineer, Controlled Impact, and Off-Road Driving. Now the Controlled Impact is in case you get into one of those awkward light tank fights, just to be able to reduce the damage that I take. But if you utterly don't want to get caught in a ramming scenario, then take Smooth Ride instead. I'm in no way suggesting that this vehicle is good for ramming. All I am saying is that when you weigh 25 tons, there are a surprising number of tier 8 light tanks that you can ram. In fact, it's only the LT-432 and the HWK-30 that are heavier than you. And all of the other vehicles, they are going to be lighter, so you could take advantage of the controlled impact to change that engagement in your favor. Equipment-wise, it's real simple. I'm going to be having two builds on this vehicle. The first one is going to be vents, gun rammer, and a turbo. That is going to be for any kind of combat situations where I just don't think I need the view range, or alternatively maps where I really utterly just want to race into position and just win the game by shooting from that scenario. My second build on this tank, and this is predominantly the build that I'm going to use on the majority of maps, I'm going to be using a vision system, coated optics, and an exhaust on this tank. And I would thoroughly recommend you get bounty optics and a bounty exhaust on this vehicle, because even with this build, we don't get that much camo and that much view range. 471 even with a perfect crew and a premium consumable. Very disappointing. Field mods wise on this tank, I'm going to be taking the valves tuning to improve the vehicle's top speed. I'm going to be improving the rate of fire on this tank. But if you absolutely utterly want to just make this thing very accurate, you could even go the other way, considering that it doesn't have very much damage per minute to begin with. Finally, I'm going to improve the reverse speed of this tank, although it does make the tank more vulnerable to ramming. For the final slot, I'm going to be taking firepower instead of mobility. But that's enough talking about this new German light tank. Let's go and see if we can make that 17 degrees of gun depression work. So first up, I'm going to be rolling out in a nice matchup on El Haloof. And the position that I like to be able to go on El Haloof is to take my scouting build and make my way in. And as towards this position, towards like the D3, and you see that I'm checking just how good the gun depression is on this tank. Spoilers, this was my very first vehicle, very first game with this vehicle. Definitely not my first vehicle in World of Tanks. I played a few hundred of them over the years, but we actually managed to spot the ELC. But the ELC actually lurches forwards, and I think I shoot between his hull and his gun. But look at this. What is that? What is this? What tank can manage to do this? This is literally on the cusp of 17 degrees of gun depression. This is the only tank at high tier that could be able to expose so little of its vehicle to be able to engage those light tanks. And look at this again. Big tip for this tank if you play it, to remember that your hydropneumatic suspension only works over the front of your tank. So if you turn like your turret towards the side there, you're not going to get the full gun depression. What you need to do is turn the hull in the same direction to be able to get the full gun depression. A lot of people, when they use hydropneumatic suspension tanks, they don't realize that. Turreted hydropneumatic suspension tanks. Imagine you're playing an STRV-103B. You can point the gun downwards over the front of the vehicle. It's the same with a turret that has the gun depression. You're only going to have 10 over the side of this tank, but again, you're going to have that 17 over the front. And just look at what these HE rounds are doing. I think we've penetrated 2 HE rounds and 2 AP rounds so far this game. And with these 17 degrees of gun depression as well, oh, man, it's just lovely. It's lovely, it's lovely, it's lovely. Just waiting. Wow. Actually, I fired an APCR round there, not an HE round. And I'd like to clarify that this was the first game that I played in this tank, and I took, I think, only 5 HE rounds. In all of my subsequent games, I took 9, because I managed to make them work so well with this tank. I really did. It's absolutely lovely within that regard. The gun depression on this tank feels good. The accuracy on this tank feels good. This tank feels really good in this kind of a situation, on this kind of a ridgeline. And just look at this. Let me just pause for a second. Just look how bonkers this is. This is absolutely bonkers right now. We're using our 7 degrees of our hydropneumatic suspension. We're tilting the back of the tank up in this scenario. And then we're tilting the gun depression of the tank as well. And look at what our opponents would be able to see if that's even like a real thing. You're going to have to squint through the bushes, okay? Boys and girls, squint through the bushes. Look at that. That is a troll. That is a troll. It's like an STRV. It is like an STRV with a gun on top. That's pretty much it. It's a shame about this horrible lower plate that the vehicle gets, but it's an STRV with a gun on top. This vehicle, look, I'm just experimenting, just seeing how far the gun can go down there, and it's just mad. It really is. Remember in this tank that each time that you're not using the gun depression, you should raise the gun to be able to improve the angling of the armor. Otherwise, you're going to like over tilt the vehicle's back, and then you're going to use the elevation with the turret, and then your opponents are going to be able to shoot above your gun. So make sure you're raising your gun to be able to gain that advantage. So, yeah, right into the AMX 1375 turret, shutting him down. But what is this XM66F doing? And even with the field mod to improve our reverse speed, we get absolutely clapped there. I'm going to put 1 into him. There goes his ammo rack with the very first shot. I think a lot of people are not prioritizing safe stowage, and you can't take preventative maintenance in the game anymore. But this is what I was showing you with the calculator, forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards. It's a very small turret to see here. So definitely take advantage of that. Or you can work ridge lines like a boss with this tank by just going forwards and backwards and just hoping that your opponents have old man aim. And quite a lot of people do have old man aim in World of Tanks. Not that there's anything wrong with having old man aim. It's just very useful when your opponents have it and you don't. Talk about old man aim. I'm going to make an old person decision here. As I'm going to be like 37 in a few weeks, right? I'm going to be making more of those decisions. And that is that I just decided that I wanted to try and sneak up and get behind the XM66F. I wanted to do it where hopefully he couldn't catch me. But the Leo appears. No, Mr. Leo. And then this is where I just feel so slow in this tank. But I decided I'm just going to miss and track the Leo, angle my armor, and we actually get a ricochet off, and I'm just praying that my team are going to help me. I'm going to put 1 into their lower plate. Wish I was loading HE in this scenario. We're going to bounce 1 more shell. Are we going to get 1 more shell in against him as we manage to? That was just old man aim city, right? Awful. Awful, awful. But we're still packing some good combines here. This was 3,800. And I have this trash. I really don't like that shenanigans. This was a solid game of World of Tanks. And more importantly, it showed you so many of the different wonderful aspects of this tank. Just really good accuracy, really good ammunition selection, and really good gun depression. And this vehicle, if it can manage to get into position quick enough to be able to contest, and you don't mind having really bad rate of fire, oof, it feels really nice. All right, so round 2, and once again, we're going for the spotting build in the Leichter Kpz 70K. Again, I have to admit, the lack of view range this vehicle has, it truly does suck. I would absolutely love to drop those coated optics out, which aren't boosted, to be able to gain all of the aspects that the vents will add. You could probably put bond vents on this tank and just about get away with it, but you'd be kind of struggling in a few other aspects of the vehicle. So, oh yeah, that's shell velocity. They're not APCR rounds, boys and girls. That's all there is to say. 1,000 meters a second. They're not fast. I keep having to pinch myself every time I play this vehicle, and just to remind myself that the shell velocity is just so poor. Funnily enough, this vehicle actually gets better shell velocity on its gold rounds, 1,100 on its gold rounds, and the same shell velocity on its HE rounds at 1,000. What's the point of APCR if it doesn't have good shell velocity? It's just worse than an AP round. So I'd rather be playing a Bulldog from that perspective. So we're just going to sit here, chill, use that exhaust to stay hidden, try not to move in case my opponents are using vision systems, and try to just get as much spotting on our opponents as we can. This vehicle is really nice in these kind of scenarios. What, where your opponents can't see you, QuickyBaby? Yes, those kind of scenarios. No, look, what I'm trying to highlight is that when this vehicle ends up in a position where it sees a lot of the map, and it has such a gun that has great opportunities. Talk about great opportunities. I didn't shoot that Borask, but Tiger 2 is Tiger 2. I'm praying that my team starts to nail the Tiger 2. I'm getting quite frustrated with the assist. Nobody wants to shoot him. Hello, TDs. Hello, mediums. Okay, finally they start hitting him, but I'm not getting any of the view range. Maybe I'm not the one who's actually spotting the Tiger 2. Still, you know, there's a tank out in the open. Your team are meant to shoot it, right? And unfortunately, because of this tank's awful, there's no other way to say it, DPM, especially without a gun rammer, you're firing like 240 every 7 seconds. Ugh, it's not good. Then you do struggle a little bit. But when you're spotting, and you are so consistent with these shells, hopefully I'm going to be consistent against this Borask. Where is he? There he is. 320 feels a lot better than 240. Let me tell you, that extra 80 makes all the difference on these tanks. We spot the Bulldog, get spotted ourselves, a bunch of our crew skills are lighting up. This tank, with its fairly low hit points as well, quite nice to be able to get. I'm trying to do a little bit of a juke there to see if I could dodge the Borask. Wishful thinking. And just like that, 720 hit points gone. And that's just what's so sad about playing a tier 8 light tank, that there are tier 8 mediums that can kind of just do your job better. So I'm thinking about going for the Blesk, don't quite manage it. I had the HE round loaded for the Borask, and I probably should have reloaded AP there. And this is what just sucks about playing a light tank, right? Borask is just going to come around the corner and I'm dead. Wait a minute, I'm actually alive. Say thank you to who gifted you life, the 416. Thank you very much. Switch back to AP so I don't make the same mistake. Track the Indian Panzer, lock them in place, get up to 3,200 assistance with 1,300 damage. Yeah, man, this tank it's feeling pretty good. I haven't really used too many of the aspects of the gun depression, so let's just go slowly up that slope to show that the gun depression matters in this scenario. But I think what we're seeing here is that this is a well-rounded tank with a good selection of ammunition, and it has just a bit better camo rating than you'd be used to on the HWK, and better than on the Bulldog, and with 10 degrees of gun depression, way more flexibility. And it allows you to do cheeky things like this, like, oh, hello, Borask! And he actually missed because he shot my viewport. Bad shot, mate. Now the Borask can't manage to kill me in a single shot, so I can even just expose myself, and if he manages to get me, it doesn't even matter because I know I'm going to reload. Unfortunately, my shell doesn't enter the vehicle. It only manages to damage the Borask's gun. But now, oh, hello, 344, delicious. And my friends shut him down. And boom, baby, up to Yeah, 5,600 combined in the first 4.5 minutes of this battle. Very decent. And maybe we can get a little bit more on the Udez. Where is he? Or is the Udez going to get a little bit more on me? Unfortunately, my shell overtaken by the Borask. And yeah, just great stuff. Just absolutely great stuff here for this tank. I really like how this vehicle feels. And yeah, I really like this disgusting 17 degrees of gun depression. It's really absolutely bizarre to look at this, but if you look at the bottom of your screen right now, that's aligned up with the tracks. That is how much gun depression this tank is getting with its 17 degrees. It is an outrageous angle to have inside World of Tanks, and it means that you just have so much flexibility with what you can do with this vehicle. All right, so look, you've seen me play 2 games with the Vision System Exhaust, where I get into a prominent position and play reasonably sneaky. Now I'm going to show you when we just go with a gun rammer, turbo, and vents, and we're in a all-purpose matchmaking where we're right in the middle against some tier 9s and some tier 7s. Now look, today I'm not going to feature a game where I go and get 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 spotting, where we go play Prokhorovka or Malinovka. That should be a given. The vehicle's camera rating is not that bad, although it is a little bit wide and it is a little bit awkward to use in a bush compared to an ELC even 90. I don't think this is the perfect tank for pure scouting because the vehicle is wide and its camera rating, as I showed, is even worse than the WZ-132. It's not the best of pure scouts, but it is proficient. You can still get over 40% camera rating in this tank with standard equipment and a standard build. It can scout. So what I'm going to be not showing you that today. Just take my word on it, okay, boys and girls? It can scout. It's kind of like a B grade, if not like a C grade with regards to its scouting capability, but it will still outscout every medium tank in the game as long as they're not stationary, right? Because there are some medium tanks that will end up with better camera rating than this as long as they're not moving. So I want to come to a conclusion about the Leichter Kpz 27 or 76, sorry. What did I just say? 720s. Yeah, no, this is not 720s. This is 76. Okay, yeah. To come to the conclusion about it, Uncle Scrubs. Is it a good tank? I like it. I like this tank. I think it's fun. I think it's funky. I really enjoyed my time with it. The amount of gun depression that you have allows you to do things that other vehicles are incapable of. I love that in World of Tanks. When Wargaming have vehicles that allow me to do things that no other tanks can, then I have fun playing those tanks. Because you look at the map with fresh eyes. Previously, positions where only like a Kranvan could use are now easy for this tank to be able to dominate from. 17 degrees, you know, they could have given this thing 14 degrees and it would have been interesting. 17 feels absolutely nutty over the front of this vehicle. In fact, I'm gonna have to pause right now and just check. Am I making a mistake here and I'm gonna have to redo this entire video? No. 10 plus 7. Hold on. Here we go. Okay. Hold on. Here we go. Where are we? Where are we? Okay. 10 plus 7. 17. I see. Is this actually for real? Yes, it is. I'm not going that old man quite yet. Look, I might be making a slight joke here, but it's really hard for me to communicate to you in this review, if you are a knowledgeable player who knows the maps of World of Tanks, just how good 17 degrees of gun depression feels over the front. It's like you're playing a Kampfpanzer, but something that just isn't really annoying to play. I hate the Kampfpanzer because you have to manually go into the siege mode, and it just feels really awkward, especially dancing in and out of the siege mode to be able to improve your rate of fire. But yeah, just like, I took a look at my turret there, and I just thought, this is what that guy's trying to shoot. He's trying to basically just shoot this. If I just cut off the bottom of my tank, there, he's trying to shoot that. You see at the bottom of the screen? He's trying to shoot that. I mean, mad. It's mad that it's a great tank from that perspective. Do I think that this vehicle is going to be outrageously overpowered? I don't think it's going to be overpowered. I think the DPM holds it back. I think the penetration holds it back. That top speed, it holds it back. But if you are a good and above player and you like playing light tanks, this thing will scratch an itch that I just don't feel like other tanks can. And I think especially when you start to use these 105mm HE rounds, to now change it so that you've actually got reasonable damage per minute and you've chunked off like 900 hit points from a mill, and you've finished them off as well to the back of the turret. Beautiful. This thing, with that gun rammer and vents, definitely stacks up. It's not going to be like an HWK30. That thing really has the damage per minute. All right. It's not even close to the M4190 when that thing gets going with its HE rounds, which aren't that much worse, only 3mm of pen. But this thing's got that tiny turret. It's just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful to be able to have that gun depression. And I'd far rather play this tank and be just so much more consistent, I feel, with a slower rate of fire. It's kind of that age-old look at something like a Manticore, for example. The Manticore has horrible damage per minute because it's got the alpha damage, it works out. With this tank, I'd say that it doesn't have the alpha damage, but it's just this gun consistency and being able to be in a position to be able to make it work. Oh, it just feels nice. No, ram kill for you, Mr. Utes. And we finished this game with a really nice 4K combined in the first 4.5 minutes, and this was 3,800 damage dealt. A lot of that down to the fabulous HE rounds and possibilities that you get. I don't think this thing is going to be overpowered. I think it's going to be quite annoying to play against. Its turret reminds me a bit like a T-92 within that regard. I think it'll be very good against light tanks or against lightly armored mediums for when it's working a ridge, because this turret, especially before people start to figure out that you can't shoot here and you can't shoot here, that you have to shoot directly at the gun, that might be confusing players. So maybe I've been playing with a little bit of an advantage with regards to that. When you see these things inevitably on the battlefield, you have to shoot the gun. Don't get baited into 30mm shells on the upper hull. You can fire heat and it'll go through pretty much every single time. But don't get baited into shooting here or shooting here. Shoot that upper gun or just dominate its lower plate with HE. All in all, I like this tank. It's fun. It allows me to go through all of the different playgrounds inside the game and have a different feel because of the possibilities of the gun depression. And I think this thing could end up with some really fun rounds. I just wish it was tier 9. I don't know how all of you feel, but with so many tier 9 premium tanks going into the game, every time there's a tier 8 one, it just doesn't feel that special. And I really don't think this thing is going to be adding anything to front line. There might be a few maps where the extra gun depression can be a little, or a few positions on the maps. There's not like there's that many maps of frontline. There might be a few positions on those maps where you could do some really good stuff. But all in all, I like this tank a lot. Would I recommend everybody trying to get their hands on it? No, I don't think it's suddenly going to make you really good at World of Tanks. It's not going to make you a huge amount of credits because you're probably going to have to fire a lot of heat to be able to be efficient. And then with only 240 alpha damage, you're not going to make many credits when you're firing those very expensive heat rounds. So I wouldn't really recommend getting this tank, going out of your way to getting it. However, for those of you that think this looks like a really fun playstyle and you vibe with me, yeah, this one can be really good. But it requires very extensive knowledge of positions, very extensive knowledge of what gun depression you need to use those positions, and all of the different armor layouts to be able to make those different kinds of rounds work with this tank. All in all, I think this tank might have one of the highest skill ceilings inside World of Tanks, and if only it didn't have that bad damage per minute, this thing would have been something to really get excited about. And I think the Wargaming did the right thing by not giving it that damage per minute. Otherwise, this thing would have been going to overpowered levels inside the game. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was my full tank review for you today. I really hope it was useful and it helps you to make a good decision, or just helps you to be able to combat these tanks when you see them on the battlefield and to know their capabilities. If it does, then make sure you give the video a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know what you think about the Kampfpanzer 70 in the comments down below. And if you're watching this video as it's released, hopefully on Friday, the 20th of September at 5 o'clock in the UK, I'm going to be live all day streaming from San Diego in the United States of America at TwitchCon 24. And to celebrate, Wargaming are giving some very special drops that you can get right now on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. After 60 minutes, you're going to get 2 keys for the Blitztrager Alf E100. After 2 hours of Tornado Alert style. And after 3 hours, you'll get one of the following mystery drops, including the possibility of getting an XM66F for free, although it's very unlikely, more like a 1 in 100 or even 1 in a few hundred chances of being able to get that. But still, maybe you'll get 3 days of premium, a day of premium, some styles, all for tuning in today. And I've got some special stuff planned as well. So come along right now as I share a little bit of TwitchCon with all of you and some goodies. So really looking forward to seeing you all live right now. As always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.